everyone, and welcome back to the Brightworks and another match of Beyond All Reason, where today what I've got for you is a good old-fashioned brawl on Glacial Gap. This is one of those maps that tends to go either way depending on whoever so manages to win the Naval lane, and today apparently we've got some cheeky strats coming out from some of these teams. So I'm excited to see exactly what goes down here between this brawling team. And today, leading the brawling team of the Red Panthers. I feel like I want to do like team names, right? We'll go with the Red Panthers here for the red team. Spawning as an Armada commander on the northern side of the front lines, it's going to be none other than Limonek. Limonek 82, in fact. Limonek 1 through 81, apparently taken. Limonek the 82nd. Going to be stepping up to the plate here at 27 open skill and showing us exactly what he's got. Spawning on the other side of the field in exactly the same position. Spawning as a blue Cortex commander. Representing the blue walruses, it's Walcornetazo. Yeah, doing that real one syllable at a time here, as the blue Cortex commander goes ahead and throws up some of those wind turbines before eventually putting down a Cortex vehicle lab. Alright, fairly stock standard. Basically a normal start right here for the blue and red commanders. On this map, it's all about expanding quickly. So I'm a little surprised to see vehicles in this position. The reason for that is because there's this little hillside right here. This little hill is not traversable by vehicles. So vehicles cannot move through this area, which means that bots is usually what we see this commander going for. It's not the end of the world, though. It just means you have to take the longer path around. Oftentimes what we'll see commanders do instead, go for a bot lab here in this lab, and then go ahead and march forward, claim these metal extractor spots. Once they have this area set up, then they transition to a vehicle lab right here. Once they have that up and running, they'll eat up their lab in the back line, and then they'll go ahead and transition to full production out of this lab right here on the front. Pardon me. Is that what we're going to see right here? I'm not entirely sure. The blue commander apparently has a strategy that they're keen on showing. We do have a single constructor being pumped out of this right now, and it looks like we also have some E-converters coming up. A little bit early for E-converters, especially 2 of them. But we do have those solar panels to stabilize things. Although, yeah, solar's not really worth it on this map. With 23 tidal speed and 19 wind speed, solar is a little bit of essentially you're avoiding a risk that isn't really there, right? You're avoiding a risk that is very, very low. In my eyes, it would almost 100% of the time be worth risking it for the biscuit, or if you're feeling a little bit like you don't want to take any risks, just go ahead and march on over to the water and set up some tidal generators. Yeah, so what I notice immediately right here, Princess Luna has not built a lab. The hot pink commander and the brown commander, Salami Brat and Slasher Haj, both have set up their laboratories. We've got a core and an arm lab, both pumping out boats right now. It looks like we're going to rush straight into a destroyer here for the brown commander. Not the end of the world, definitely a little bit greedy, right? Because you don't have any units to defend yourself early on. But of course, it also means that once you get that destroyer out, say for instance there's an early submarine, it can counter that build perfectly. It's a 100% build counter if you know where the submarine is. Excuse me, pardon me. Just had a delicious dinner, so that's why I'm a little burpy today. But anyways, finishing that thought, if you know where the submarine is, if you have good vision, if you have good sonar, all that good stuff, then this can be a perfect way to waste 400 to 500 metal out of the enemy's laboratory. Not only that, but also sometimes you can resurrect that submarine and put it on your own forces. Not all the time, but sometimes. Anywho. Gonna be a fairly more traditional start right here from the blue commander, who's been given a couple of these boats right now. These are just the good old-fashioned herring missile corvette light anti-air sonar boats. They have sonar detection, right, so they can see under the water. They also have the anti-air missiles, so they can shoot down scout planes. Love to see them parked in this formation right here, because of course that means that no air scouts are going to be able to fly across the map. I do believe we did get some good air scouting right here from the blue team. You know, maybe not actually. Yeah, actually not very much vision over here at all. We at the very least see the geothermal being rushed out by the yellow commander, only defended here by a couple of mesas and a single pawn. This is as good as dead, yeah? Single constructor not really going to be enough to shut down all these ticks. There they go, blasting down the geothermal. The mesas trying their very best, but they're just too slow. They're projectiles and the bots themselves in order to shut this down, and just like that, the constructor falls. Finally, the mesas will manage to take out most of those ticks. A single one of them makes pass, though. There we go. Commander finally blasted down, but my goodness, that was a close call. Hero LLTs set up over here from Skordons. The Cyan commander using those LLTs to defend this choke point right here. Oh, no energy, though. Means that these LLTs aren't really firing. Definitely a bummer, because those light hovercraft shouldn't have made it through. Looks like just barely they'll be defended, but that almost was a bad situation right there. Those light hovercraft could have had the opportunity to kill these laser towers, actually. If they just focused the laser towers down, they would have easily been able to kill them right here. Shuriken coming out to defend against the early amphibious tanks. What an interesting play right here from the Maroon Commander, Rajik 12. The Maroon Commander with 12 open skill and 3 chevrons right here. trying to go for a little bit of a raid. Now, we should see some micro on this. Targeting down the weakened LLT. There we go. Looks like we will get one of those LLTs. Still not nearly enough value to justify all the units that we've sent down to their early graves over here on the right-hand side of the map. So far, the aggression has not been successful. Res subs keeping this constructor alive. Constructor keeping this torpedo launcher building. The missile ship's trying desperately to shut down anything of it. Yeah, there we go. Res subs to repair. Going to be more than enough to throw on a guard command, not a repair command. Oh! What a bummer right there. Those definitely could have fixed that if they had a repair command, but unfortunately the guard command, they didn't know what to do about that. One of those, like, weird AI quirks that you can't really... Oh, no, we're throwing away the destroyer. Oh, this is not what we like to see. Yikes. Brown Commander Salami Brat has thrown away the destroyer into enemy territory. Torpedo launchers have taken down the guard pikes. This is loads and loads of metal down the drain. Oof. An excellent start right here for the blue team that has already gone for a cheeky strategy here. So you can see effectively what this is. This is basically a water communism build. Yeah, so all the resources being pulled into one lab, and it looks like basically all being controlled by one commander on the front line here too. This is a strategy that I've gone for. This is a strategy that I've seen others go for. This is a strategy that works. It's one that I would definitely recommend, especially if you're a newer player and you're playing with someone a little bit more technically skilled than you might be on the front lines there, especially in Navy. Never a bad idea to go ahead and send a couple of those boats over to that player. Just let them fight a concerted front and make sure that you defend a choke-pointed area, right? Buy them time, buy them space, but essentially give them the authority to pull the units or push the units as necessary in order to make those trades happen a lot more efficiently right here. Maroon Commander on the front to defend. We should definitely see him grabbing those mexes as well. It's always worth it to grab the mexes as quickly as possible here. Lovely expansion right now from Limonek82, the red commander right now, who's going for loads of mexes and the build power on the front line here. You can see as these mexes come up, the eco really does start to spiral. At 27 metal per second, you're actually ready for T2. As long as you've got a decently sized army on the front line to defend yourself, Limonek could actually comfortably tech into T2 at this point. Just throw down a T2 lab and let it build passively over time. With the reinforcements coming out of the lab, by the time these reinforcements get to the front line, that T2 lab will be completed or nearly completed. And it means you're actually going to be in a really decent position to overwhelm your opponent by the time that they get their T2 lab out, if they're going to delay it a little bit longer. They might keep investing into T1, so you'll have to give up some space on the front. But as long as you take those trades relatively efficiently and you have a couple res bots to clean up the wreckage from those first T2 units coming out on the field, usually that can end up being a really huge advantage. Single riot tank right here from the Maroon Commander is holding this front line together singularly, managing to mop up all of these early pawns and essentially deny them any and all access through the midsection of this map. We do have a second riot tank, and that of course expands the effective area that you can cover. Means that this is going to be a decent situation right here on the southern side. Combined forces managing to be a decent way to push back a lot of these units in red right now. Similar composition moving forward right here from the blue commander, but again, we didn't move forward and build that forward lab that we've seen a lot, and we also have a lot of unclaimed metal extractors. Yeah, this is a blunder. This is a really, really big blunder from the green commander. Well, actually not really. It's more so on the blue commander. Oh my goodness, look at this. Okay, so quick lesson right here. I'll slow this to 0.5 so we don't miss anything too crazy. If you're looking at the wind speed and the total wind speed is above, I would say probably 15. Basically, you're going to want to go ahead and go for wind turbines. You're never going to want to put this much metal into solar panels, because if we quickly look at the math right here, this is 2,500 metal worth of solar panels that's only producing 340 energy. Whereas if you put that much metal into either wind turbines or in this case even tidal generators, it would be more efficient than fusion reactors, right? Because at 21 tidal speed, it's just barely below a fusion reactor. At 22, it's just barely higher than a fusion reactor. So in this case, what I'd like to see is some of this metal sent on over to the naval players here to buy a constructor, and then using that constructor to fill an area with tidal generators. It's a really easy way to change up your playstyle, but it can mean vastly more efficient unit production. Because of course, having that extra, several thousand metal to put into units or to put into T2 economy, it's just going to leapfrog you into that new T2 era a whole lot quicker. Anyhow. All that said and done, the E-Converter economy is potent and it's definitely valuable. You can see right now a lot of that energy is being converted here, so definitely not a shy economy from the Blue Commander, but it would be a whole lot better if we actually had these 4 metal extractors on the front. Nearly, 1.3x the economy if we had put these metal extractors up on the front line here instead of just building in the back line and sending reinforcement units forward. It's one of those things that you learn with experience as you slowly trade out and you realize how important those metal extractors are. An easy way to think about it is just that this is 50 metal for 2 metal per second. A fusion reactor is an advanced fusion reactor is 9,000 metal for 40 metal per second. Pretty easy to see the math right there, right? 200 metal for 8 metal per, or yeah, 200 metal for 8 metal per second versus, you know, more than 4x that for less than 4x the profit. My numbers are getting twisted up here, and you're never supposed to do math live in a video or a live stream or anything. Breaking the golden rule right here, but hopefully my point is clear. Metal extractors should, in the early game, always be prioritized. There are essentially no maps. There's a single map, and that's Greenhaven, the one with no metal extractors. Aside from that specific edge case, there are really no maps where metal extractors shouldn't be prioritized, at least early on into the game. Especially if you're frontlining. Frontlining metal extractors are the most efficient way to produce metal. The second most efficient being eating the enemy army, right? So taking efficient trades and then eating up their army. That's the second most efficient way to get metal. That goes hand in hand with eating up your own units that die. Just like, looks like Kasparos is thinking about doing. Yeah, we got the con here. And we're going to go for some build power. I don't mind that either, of course. It helps repair all the tanks on the front line. But that build power can also be useful because if you end up fighting around it, it means, of course, that you're going to be able to, yeah, go ahead and reclaim everything in that area as well. Massive advantage for the red team. I mean, as far as the positional advantage goes, we've got loads and loads of build towers coming up. We've got all sorts of stuff coming up right here. The blue navy is actually looking wonderful. We've got the orange commander now out in the water setting up torpedo launchers and defending this area. I'd love to see them stepping forward to try and claim this, but there's a lot of destroyers out, so it's understandable that you'd be a little bit hesitant about pushing forward into that section, at least without a little bit of support from some of your teammates. This is an interesting composition we've got here from the brown commander. It's submarine destroyer. One of the things that this affords you is, of course, that against frigates, you're going to be extremely potent. Submarines only take a couple of shots to blast down most of the units. You can see 3 torpedoes here to blast down a herring is brutal. You're also going to win any sort of submarine war, right? Because destroyers and submarines counter submarines. You have the burst DPS advantage, but you definitely have the numerical disadvantage, right? You have way fewer units, but they all hit quite a bit harder. Nice push right here on the southern side. The destroyers have snowballed to the point that those torpedo launchers really don't have much of an effect against them. There's technically no reason why they had to take any damage there, but of course without a sonar boat, either a herring or a skater, there's not really any way for those to engage outside of their vision range. But pushing in and not losing any of them is still fine. Construction tower, still within range to reclaim a lot of this, so this is definitely still perfectly fine for the green commander who's been fighting against vehicles. Essentially, the way that you win against vehicles is just by going ahead and trading out your units and eating up both the wreckages of your units and the enemy units. You'll end up making enough metal that you can continue your rampage, and they essentially cannot. Vehicles costing quite a bit more metal means, of course, that the more vehicles, if you both have to pay for 1 unit apiece, the vehicle player is going to run out of metal before you. Lightning turret doing a phenomenal job here, a swell nominal job. There we go. Blasting away at this riot tank and, well, basically anything else here. These are extremely pesky to deal with. These lightning turrets have extremely high resistance when they're tucked in. When they're tucked into their little shell form, they have really high resistance, so they're very, very resistant to damage. It means that while there's build power around, those are very difficult to kill if they're in their little turtle form. 2 of them down right here, though, as they were just engaged headfirst with the army from the red and yellow commanders here. It means that only a single turret remains. We do have the HLT to defend this again, but man, this is just a overwhelming position for the red team. That being said, the blue team with a huge advantage. A lot of that coming from reclaim, I believe, because... and maybe some of those T2 metal extractors. Yeah, actually, yeah, it comes from the T2 mexes. These T1 metal extractors in the backline are killing me here. The yellow commander on T2, but it looks like everybody else is way too slow to get up to those T2 mexes. The red player just barely starting T2. The tan commander hasn't even been given a T2 constructor here and is instead just building T1. And the maroon commander has started a T2 lab without being handed a T2 con. So a little bit of a failure to propagate T2 from the red team. Definitely another area to improve as far as teamwork goes. Just zooming out a second and checking on your teammates to make sure that all of them have T2 before you go ahead and upgrade all of your front line and start pumping out units, all that stuff. The effect later down the line that handing a couple of T2 units over can have is essentially game winning. There we go. Massive Navy right here has been taking these wonderful trades right now, just picking off 1 unit at a time, effectively trading out against the forces right here of the brown commander. Every time that one of these engagements happens, and it's 1 boat versus 5, 6, it's a fabulous situation for the cyan commander right here. And I think this has worked out wonderfully. Normal tent now forced out of the water right here by the destroyers. It's just good old-fashioned destroyer herring. We've got missile boats and destroyers all en masse, and the res subs to eat up all the wreckage. That is game. That is a game-winning push right here from the Naval players. All they need to do is push forward to secure the win. Continue taking these 1v5, 1v6 trades. Things are going to be swell. There's not really anything they can do about that. Looks like Commander went up in smoke here. The Green Commander did. Went down and took down all the static defense with it. You can see the debris of the different units lying in the lying in the snow here. The nuclear explosion tells a tale. We've got spam labs coming up in the front. Okay, interesting. Human being gonna go ahead and set up some spams. Doesn't have the metal to build these. Could, of course, eat up those gauntlets. We have the T2 lab and we have a T2 constructor, but we're building 100 butlers instead of going for the T2 metal extractors. Prioritizing those T2 metal extractors seems to be the one way that the red team could slightly improve their gameplay here, or at least one of the big ways. Rocketeers in the backline. Yeah, let's just really quickly, before this all gets destroyed. I think it was about 6 to 7,000 metal worth of T1 solar panels. Yikes. Easy way for the Blue Commander to improve the game here is just to go ahead and build way fewer of those T1 solar panels, either transitioning to advanced solar panels if you really desperately need the energy but can't go for T2, or of course just going for T2. I mean, you could easily, you could pay for a T2 lab. You could pay for 2 T2 labs with all the metal, or all the solar panels right here. What a glorious, glorious sight that brings a bloody tear to my eye, seeing that many T1 solar panels. My hatred for the T1 solar panel is well renowned throughout the community, but in case you needed the proof, here it is. Do the math on your own. This is the Brightworks worksheet. 6,000 metal for, what would it be, like 750 energy or something like that? 760 energy. Do a quick math and get back to me on whether that's more or less efficient than a fusion reactor. Your homework for today. Usually for T1 labs, another point of coaching, if you're trying to set up spam labs, usually the tipping point that I like to go for these T1 labs is about 2 constructors per lab. 2 to 3 constructors per lab will pump out pawns at a reasonable rate, and that's really kind of what you're aiming for here as at the end goal of spamming out units. Ticks are obviously cheaper and therefore much easier to produce. They also have way less build cost, which means that they're a little bit easier to spam out initially, but once Junos come online, you're going to have to switch over to pawn production. So it's better to plan ahead for that. Just be aware of the fact that you're going to need about that much build power. 2 to 3, sometimes people like to go for 4 just because it means you can line up a nice row of 4 build turrets. I find that 3 works pretty nicely here, though. This is a dire situation, and the red team is not reacting appropriately. The correct response to this much naval aggression, this much naval superiority here, the correct response would be ducks. It would be going into some Cortex T2 bots. It looks like we have a lot of core players, but no core bot players. Without those core bots, those ducks in the water, this Navy is very fragile. I will say, though, that this is... we may be seeing a clutching defeat from the jaws of victory situation here, as the blue team has backed off all aggression, and instead... I mean, where are the boats at? We've backed off in order to go for T2, which is not the end of the world, of course. It sort of cements this victory. But there is a fine line right here where these units could push forward and kill basically the entire navy of the Blue Commander right now. Submarines marching forward. As long as these submarines don't take a bad engagement against these destroyers, and as soon as this battleship does get up to the front lines, things are going to look a whole lot nicer. But for the time being, if the red team would only send their units forward, they would realize just how much damage they actually could do with this army. I mean, 3 or 4 blasts from the destroyers is all it takes to kill a herring, and I think it's about 4 depth charges, 4 to 5 depth charges to kill a submarine. I mean, there we go. The herrings are dead. The destroyers need only engage these submarines, and they would win this easily. This is not a fearsome navy whatsoever. Too much cowardice here. The Brown Navy pulling back at this point, where really they should have killed those submarines, eaten up the reclaim, and gone ahead and pumped out a whole bunch more units. You can win against T2 with T1 destroyers. They are extremely powerful. Easy to underestimate the T1 destroyer, but in the T2 battle, they can still find immense value, especially in the fact that you can trade them out more readily, right? Skardon's apparently looking to trade right here. Yeah, the Cyan Commander, maybe not, taking some interesting positions here, just trying to waddle away all over the place. Zor is rolling out to the front line. This front line is in dire danger. The blue team needs to win this Navy lane. If they push for the Navy lane, I think this is all going to crumble very quickly as suddenly too many opportunity paths open up right here. But for the time being, the Tsar is on the front, and it's exactly what you need to pop a bunch of this T1 and semi-fragile T2. If the Tsar can start taking some decent trades against these hounds right here, if he can start... Oh, yeah, this is juicy. Popping a bunch of the T1 right now. All of this metal wasted right down the drain. It's going to start to hurt the blue team immensely. So it might look strange, but this many destroyers does win against this army right here. Because you can fire both weapons simultaneously, they will kill all the submarines in 1 or 2 volleys, and then all the guns will kill the battleship in a couple volleys as well. So this is actually a winning engagement right now for the blue commander, and I think we're about to see it. Yeah, every volley shredding off about 20% right there. A wonderful engagement for the brown. Oh, why aren't we finishing the job? Oh no. This is the one way you lose it is by dipping your units in and then leaving the units at relatively low health. That is unfortunate. That really is a oh. Looks like we had a little chain reaction over here. Idiot, cries out the Tan commander. Maybe a heartfelt moment of rage right there as suddenly everything went up in smoke. Several thousand metal worth of T1 labs went up in smoke. We've all been there. We've all been on the receiving and the giving end of that. Just remember that. Oh, this hurts. This hurts my eyes to see this brown navy pulling back like this. This navy could have easily killed all these boats. It could have resurrected the destroyer, and then it would have had a massive fleet of destroyers and a battleship in the backline as well. Yeah, this is one of those textbook situations where a little bit of scouting and just a little bit more game sense can definitely mean the difference between winning or losing here. The second destroyer is going to be heading on over in this direction. Also relatively low, actually. It looks like it was fighting those hounds for the longest time. Both of these boats need to be repaired to full health right now. Otherwise, this is, again, going to be a really tricky situation. I think, okay, yeah, we're going to go for T2 right now. I think that might be the wrong move. I think Salami Brat is maybe a little bit new to Navy. 7 open skill and 3 chevron. Definitely worth mentioning that this is probably a player learning the game. So this is all coaching advice, right? Gentle critiques in the right direction that these T1 units can grand slam T2 units. The destroyers can absolutely dunk on T1 units if you give them the opportunity to. And this is certainly such a situation where that would be totally possible. Torpedo bomber is going to be pretty annoying, though. Yeah, well, when microed properly, torpedo bombers are very tricky to deal with. Essentially, what they can do is fight command from outside of range, meaning that they can deploy their torpedoes. Once they deploy their torpedoes, they will... Okay. Once they deploy their torpedoes, they will be... they can pull back and fire out of range, and they can effectively dodge all incoming enemy anti-air fire. The way that you do that is you send the sonar planes and you send the torpedo bombers, and then as you're moving them forward, just move commanding with a right click and a drag. You hit the F key and you right click and drag to do a flight command, and then the torpedo bombers will lock onto a target, drop their bombs, and then you turn them around with another move command, and they'll go ahead and get out of there. That's the proper way to micro that. That's just one of those easy little things to learn how to micro, and it's very, very tricky to figure that out for the first time. But once you get it down, it's pretty easy to do after that. Zars have certainly gotten some value on the front line here. It looks like we're resurrecting the commanders on the front line. Don't mind that whatsoever. The advanced Geo is a little bit suspect, though. That's definitely a very high explosive right next to a very high concentration of very sensitive forces. Wouldn't mind seeing... yeah, actually, we do have some rattlesnakes up on the front. I was just about to say I'd love to see some of those long-range artillery cannons just to punish these hounds for engaging a little too close. And that's exactly what we see right here. The purple hounds being shredded apart by the dual rattlesnake cannons, pulling apart those T2 units. Nicely done. Ambassador missile trucks firing away as far out of range as they can. The grunt spam here, shattering the hopes and dreams of the sharpshooters right now, is suddenly... Sharpshooters wasting their shots on those very inexpensive grunts, costing 880 energy to build, and the sharpshooter costing, I believe it's, yeah, 500 energy to shoot. Destroyers have finally engaged right here, though, and it looks like we are headed for a decent engagement at this point. Do we have, yeah, we have plenty of sonar planes, so these should be able to fire away at range. It means that the destroyers should take a decent engagement. The res sub should be repairing the destroyers, definitely their top priority. T2 boat just nearly completed, but not in the nick of time here. 2 T2 labs was the wrong decision. 3 T2 labs was the wrong decision. 1 T2 lab was the correct one here. And just like that, the destroyers engage against the side that isn't completely heavily guarded. A wonderful decision making right there from the cyan and powder blue commander, Princess Luna and Scordance. You know, I say all that. Submarines are still pretty good. Yeah. The one thing that the destroyer is relatively weak against is, of course, those submarines. It has no anti-sub tech of its own, which means, of course, that any submarine that encounters it is going to get a 100% efficient engagement. The Dreadnought battleship here, firing away with its dual Gauss cannons as well, doing a wonderful speck of damage right now. Kraken siege submarine, long-range battle submarine, doing a splendid job here of, well, did a splendid job of firing away at least once. We're definitely struggling to keep this base alive, though. The units falling rapidly right now as they are being... Well, they're trying to target down the laboratory here, but the firepower is gone. The single gunship in the air, the single cutlass that could rule them all, to bind them and in the darkness find them, or something. Yeah. Oh well, you know what? I mean, if we're not going to use these constructors to build any anti-air, I guess the cutlass is going to have a grand old time. Splendid. Jumped right over here to see the Maroon Commander and the Tank Commanders falling once again. Just a bunch of WASP T2 gunships flying on over in this direction, finding those commanders and popping them once more. Always hilarious to see a commander get back up on its feet, and then of course fall flat on its face once more. Needless to say, the blue team has easily won this naval game. It's about whether or not they want to go ahead and get that victory. Beautiful chain reaction right there. A splendid chain reaction on the brown commander's base as the single cutlass has managed to tear them apart once more. Where are the air players? I swear we had one earlier. I'm not sure exactly where they've gone off to. Oh, it looks like Brimo is in charge of air. A couple of fighters over here neglecting the fact that there is a gunship single-handedly tearing apart the entire brown base. Easy thing to miss in the heat of the warfare, Jimbo, but it's something that you definitely have to try and keep your eyes on as the air player. One of the reasons why air is so difficult is because you have to have such a total map perspective, right? You have to play the game zoomed out like it's an Excel spreadsheet or something. You have to be very, very cognizant of exactly what's going on with your team across the board here. We'll zoom back in, though, for those cinema shots. Those beautiful cinema shots right there. Watching some hounds trod their way across the battlefield here, barraging whatever they can find in those long-range heavy Gauss cannon projectile shots. Devastating the metal extractors here, and yeah, definitely accentuating the influx of units that the blue team has just spread across the battlefield right now. Those are the long-range plasma cannon shots right there of the capital ship that's been pumped out at this point. Pardon me. This capital ship, to be precise. The Lavender boat, the Black Hydra, the flagship to rule them all. Firing off into the distance, eager to send this game to the very end right now. One flagship is all it takes to win this game. There goes the AGO in the distance. A beautiful barrage of sparks and fire and death and destruction. And just like that, the capital ship has managed to devastate this front line. Those hounds doing a phenomenal job. The capital ship accentuating that advantage. LRPC firing away over here, by the way. Shield generator thrown up by the red commander here, panicking a little bit and trying to get that shield generator up and running. A single res sub trying to patch up some of these T2 boats. You know, submarines under the water is still an effective option for dealing with these battleships. Why are we sending this in on its own? Oh my goodness. About as inefficient of a battleship as you could hope for. The Despot there dying essentially needlessly. Capital ship thinking about doing the same thing. It's hoping at the very least that it can do the same thing. We need some Buccaneers mixed in here to try and settle these submarines down. One option, of course, is to also, again, go for ducks. Getting some ducks out in the water are a wonderful anti-submarine. They're actually just a wonderful Navy force. The duck is the best ship in the game. They have the ability to fire while moving, and they can, of course, fire in all directions as well. Makes them the best submarine in the game for a lot of different reasons. Here we go, though. You can see about 0.5% per shot right there from these T1 submarines, and it looks like about 3 or 4% right there from the long-range battle sub. Yeah, I want to say about 3%. Not bad if we had 40 of them. Unfortunately, here we only have the 2. Doing decent work against this, don't get me wrong, down to 73% before it manages to find the base, but the Despots are very eager to take down any such base that's built a little too close to the coastline. Sharpshooters now barraging whatever they can, poking away at the boats. Sharpshooters can be an effective counter to siege boats, especially the battleships. Capital ships, though, can vastly outrange them, and there's really not a whole lot you can do about the fact that this thing can just shoot for miles. Salami Rod a little late on the detonation there, killing the submarine but not managing to do all too much. A slightly better option, a option that is often neglected here, is of course you can go ahead and go for a capture command. It's a weird one, but if you have a commander underneath, you can go ahead and go for a capture command, and what that means is, of course, that you'll be able to try and capture some of these enemy units. I'm not going to sit here and claim that it's the best way to shut down a capital ship, but in dire circumstances, I've seen it solve some very particular issues. These bases are in complete disarray, though. Yeah, the Lavender and Cyan force is now sailing forward, Devastating production right here for the hot pink and the brown commander. With the units marching in from a hidden lab from Skordons. Nicely done. The orange commander is also knocked out of this game. Was going for a transition into salamanders. A little late on the T2 metal extractors here. Means that T2 transition's a little late. And you can see everything just follows the T2 transition, right? The timing of the T2 essentially dictates the timing of everything else. With that T2 mechs coming up just a little bit too slow, it means that those orange units really weren't on the field long enough to have much of an effect. Shielding now vastly ineffective against the, or largely ineffective against the capital ships. They can, a single capital ship punch through the shields much more effectively than once they couldn't. Means that nowadays you need to invest much more metal into plasma shields in order to deflect the plasma projectiles of these capital ships. It makes it a very, very tricky situation because, of course, plasma shielding is not easy to keep up and running. You have to pay 563 energy per second, and of course the 3,000 metal price tag on top of all that is quite expensive as well. More Cutlass here, harassing the backline. Always love to see it. Finding value wherever we can. Cutlass popping the fusion reactor here and detonating some of those advanced solars in the area as well, before moving onward to try and find some more value everywhere else on the field. Focus here, princess, says Zedoxis, as the advanced fusion pops. The lone shield generator, not enough to keep this up and running. The southern side has been well destroyed. Catapults now firing away as far as they can. I would love to see these moved even further along the coast. Basically keeping this just barely in range of the shielding means you can get these within range of the capital ship. So I'd love to see these step as far forward as possible and then start firing away. I think they might be able to actually reach out into the ocean and hit this capital ship. With the vision that the submarines provide, of course, we would be able to do that as well. However, the submarines are off taking a little bit of a leisurely vacation down here on the southern side. Slasher Hodge not interested in microing those anymore. Instead, just going to go ahead and focus on this commander fighting a bunch of pawns. Well, there we go. Capital ship blasted apart right here. Apparently, the catapults are the capital ship solution. There goes the hot pink commander right there, though. Maybe this will be the time that we realize this is available right now. Oh, we do have some res subs eating up the capital ship. Lovely stuff. Yeah, res subs apparently going to be enough to eat up the capital ship here. Just give it about 30 minutes. Frontline is dissolved for the red team, though, and that's no surprise, as after losing all of those metal extractors and after losing all of the T2 advantage, after getting their backline economy trashed, and after losing their air support, the red team is in a dire way right here. I think we all see the direction that this is going, so I'll go ahead and speed this up as we watch the capital ships fire away at these Razorbacks, just barely trotting their way out of the T3 lab right now. We do have a Juggernaut in production right now from the yellow commander. It looks like it will just barely finish up. My goodness, the capital ships are brutal, though. Firing away at this Thor from out of range. No chance for it to recover. Capital ships should probably be consolidated under one captain's flag just to make sure that they're all firing at the same direction. Not the end of the world, of course, but just one of those little things you can do to make it slightly more efficient here. If we don't already have pinpointers, those would be another way to step up the accuracy right now, allowing his catapults to hit their shots a little bit more frequently. Not the end of the world, but just one of those little details that you can easily forget but can be added on later on, especially with a decent enough economy, and I don't think we see any here. That goes double for the capital ships as well, which of course benefit from advanced targeting. The ability to actually hit what they're shooting at with their mile-long heavy Gauss cannons. Essentially ignoring the shielding. What good is the shield against the capital ship? Apparently none at all. The capital ship's essentially ignoring the shields entirely, punching straight through them and directly into the base right here of the Tan Commander. Demons in the air will eventually be shot down by the Razorbacks, the anti-air trucks, and the anti-air emplacements. But my goodness, a single demon making it that far is definitely concerning. We've now got Fat Boys slowly stepping their way forward here. And I do mean very slowly stepping their way forward here. These capital ships should be the death of this team, though. You know what? I love the work the Cataphracts are doing, I will say. For their cost, these Cataphracts have definitely gotten their values worth. Firing away at these capital ships and getting immense value out of destroying them, and also, I'm sure, immense joy. The Despot right here, moving within strike range. Be a little bit careful about that. You can accidentally make the enemy weapons quite a bit more effective, but there we go. Looks like the yellow base has gone up in smoke. Zedox is moving in for the Deacon right here. At this point, it leaves only a single commander. Where are you? I'm looking for the comm here. Oh. We've got Kasparos hiding out in the corner over here. Alright, Kasparos. The game is well over. The Juggernaut is on its way. It looks like we are well and clearly thrown out of the match here. The blue team seizing victory in this game with the capital ship supremacy. With the, commander eventually self-D'ing here. Managing to win this game with overwhelming economic improvements and eventually slightly better unit micro. I will say slightly better unit micro. Phew, what a match. Thanks a ton for sitting through it with me. If you made it this far, please feel free to hit that subscribe button. Join up on the Brightworks. We do have new members joining us each and every single day. There's also a link down below to a Discord channel full of a bunch of other cool Brightworks members that are going to be playing Beyond No Reason all the time. So if you're looking for teammates that are chill to play with, I would definitely say that's a decent source for going and looking for teammates. Other than that, I sure hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the very next cast of Beyond All Reason. Peace out, everybody.